The first walkthrough part I'm going to do is 810A. This is the simplest, most basic part that we are going to be doing in this assignment. But I wanted to go through it so at least get you started with how this process works. I'm going to try to explain all of my clicks, all of my thoughts, how I'm going through this whole process so you can kind of see it from start to finish. Even though this is a relatively simple part, if you have not done this before, this will hopefully get you kind of started with the right thought process and the right process of actually using Autodesk Inventor. So this is what our part is going to look like. Our final part is going to look like. But before we do that, we need to start off from the very beginning. And when we do that, we need to flip over to our assignment. So here is 810 out of the book. So 810A, we need to look at our two orthographic views that we have and kind of understand what this part looks like. And in this case, we can see that it is really an L shape that has an extruded thickness associated with it. Now remember, when I talked to you guys about doing the hand drawings, we're going to use a dimension of 6 for the height, 8 for the width, and 3 for the depth here. And basically everything else, all the other dimensions, we want to scale it up so it looks like it's about the same. So I'm going to look at this and I'm going to look at that line, and that looks like that's about in the middle of the width of our part. And this line right here looks like it's in the middle of the height of our part. So this is probably going to be a 4-dimension. This is going to be a 3-dimension. And that's how I'll start this out. So kind of with that going, now we can start our part. So let's flip back over to Inventor. And now let's start our part. So there's multiple ways to start our part. We can go up under File. We can go up under here and click down New. If we click down the arrow, and I know, I apologize, this is kind of cut off the screen a little bit, but it's got assembly drawing part. And if I click on my part, it's going to start a new part. So we got our new part. Now we need to do a 2-dimensional sketch, remember. So now that L shape, if I flip back over here, this L shape, this is in the front view. So I'm going to draw that L shape in the front view. So I want to make sure I select the right plane over here. So I'm going to click on Start 2D Sketch. And then I want to pick the right plane. Now this XY plane is really our front plane. Well, if you can't remember that, you can kind of take a look at this little block up here. It says front and it kind of lines up there. That's our cube. So that plane aligns with the front plane. That corresponds to our XY plane, and I'm going to click on that. It's going to rotate us around, and now we have our view to start. So in this case, I am going to start drawing my line. Now it's basically an L shape. So what I want to do is I want to always anchor my sketch to the origin of the part. So right here is our origin. I want to at least have, typically what I like to do is I like to start there, have that anchored, and you can kind of see that there is a coincident constraint that is aligning that end of that line with the origin of that part. And you can kind of see that in the info box there. So it's highlighted green. So I'm going to click and release. I'm going to go up. And now I'm just going to make my shape. Now I'm going to go around here. Now, as I go around here, you can see that there are different constraints that'll pop up. There's a perpendicular. So this perpendicular constraint is showing that we're making the new line perpendicular to the line that I just made up above. So I'm going to, I actually want that. So I'm going to make sure I have that in there. But so I'm going to click that down. I'm going to click over here. Now I don't want to necessarily put a line in like this because I don't want a line at an angle. I want it horizontal. So if I see there, it snaps down, it goes to a perpendicular constraint, which means it's perpendicular to this other line. So I'm going to want that. I'm going to come all the way down to the axis here. So not only do I have a perpendicular constraint, but it basically becomes coincident with that x-axis. And I'm going to come all the way back to the beginning, and I'm going to make a closed loop here. So basically now it is stopped. It has our shape all defined in there. And basically that's our L shape. Now the dimensions are not right yet, but we're going to fix that in just a moment. So now that we have our shape, we're then going to add our dimensions. So I'm going to add dimensions. So first one I'm going to add is this one right here. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to put my dimension down. Now I know that that height dimension, we talked about making that 6. So I'm going to put in 6 right away, and whoop, it goes way off the screen. And I'm not going to worry about that right yet, but because I can get access to this other line. and that is our overall width. And I'm going to click that down, and that is going to be 8. So I'm going to click that in there. Now I can't see anything, so let's zoom all out. So I'm going to click on our zoom all little button here, and it brings our shape back in here. Now if we take a look at this, this kind of gets down into some small geometry here, and that can be kind of a pain. So we may need to zoom in and out to actually be able to finish some of this off. But let's put in our other 2 dimensions. So with the dimension tool still highlighted, I can click on this height here, and I know that that height we said that was going to be half of the height, so that's going to be 3. And then I know, let's see, right here. So it's either I can click on this one or I can click on this line, whichever line is easier to get to. In this case, either one works, but I'm going to put it on this one, and I'm going to put this dimension right up here. And I'm kind of putting this way up high because typically, just for by convention, we don't want to have the dimensions on the part, but it doesn't really matter when we're making a sketch here. But I'm going to put it up there, and that's going to be a dimension of 4. And it moved anyway, so it's on the dimension here, or on the part. But here we have our L shape. It is all blue, it's not green, so it's fully defined. It says it's fully constrained down here. That's exactly what we want. Now we can exit this sketch. So we're going to finish this sketch. Again, it zooms in on us, it rotates it around. So let's do a zoom all. Now we can see our part. Okay, now let's go up to do our extrude. So we're going to make it a feature. Now we're going to make it a 3-dimensional part. So click on extrude. Now the one thing is that we only have one sketch, and it automatically detects that profile, and so it starts to extrude it the way that we want it. Now we need to make sure that we have the depth set right. So in this case, I want to put in a distance, and I don't want it to be 1 deep. I want it to be 3 deep. That's what we talked about before. So that's going to be 3. I'm going to hit enter, and when I hit enter, it actually accepts it, says okay to that box, so it goes in there. Now there is our final part. Now, let's say you hit enter and something's not right. You need to make sure you go back in there and modify it. You can come over here to the extrusion in your feature tree, right click on it, and then there is a edit feature command down here. We can click on that edit feature, and it'll bring that box back. Don't try to click on a new extrude because it's going to get all goofy on us. So, but if you do that, then you can go in here, and if you need to change something, change the direction or whatever, or you don't have the dimension right, you can make those modifications. Click OK, it's all good. Now at this point, go in and save your file. Now I would save it as 8.10a so that you can use this later on. Now, unfortunately, these well, here we go, actually. So we've got file, and then you can come down here and say save as. Unfortunately, my windows are not cooperating, and they're half off the screen here, but there's a save as command. And if you do a save as command, it will then bring up a directory. Find your directory that you want to save it in. I would recommend that you save it on a flash drive so that you can take it back and forth from school and home, and to be able to work on these. And I would name it 8.10. So 8.10a is going to be the name of our part. You can say save, and then it will save that part. In this case, I'm not going to save this one, but that is our walkthrough for 8.10a.